Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com, and welcome back to another Friday Live at 3 edition from our studio. As you can tell by having two laptops on my desk, I'm doing this solo again. Those millennials, man, they're just not made out of tough enough stuff to hang with us, so I guess we're going to do this solo yet again. It'll be okay. So if it's a little rocky, yeah, give me a break. I'm having to multitask here, and I'm old. So, as promised, I'm going to lead off with one of the questions from last week, and it was from Barbu. And he says, I've got an '07 Kawasaki ER6N with an issue. When the fuel tank is below half and I brake really hard, the engine dies. I changed the fuel pump and it's still the same. Any recommendations? I've been putting some thought into this. Actually did a little bit of searching, and I want to just ask you a couple of questions for you to look at. As far as the fuel tank being low, that's the curious wild card in this. I don't know if that's just a coincidence or not. But typically what makes one of those die is if the RPM level at idle is set a little too low, and maybe your clutch engagement isn't quite smooth enough or not adjusted correctly. The combination of those two things will get one to turn off. So check those two things first before we start going after the fuel. I mean, you've already replaced the fuel pump, so I'm not really sold that the fuel is the issue. I think it may be a combination of the idle RPM and or the clutch adjustment. So why don't you take a peek at those two variables and then get back to us. And it looks like some of our questions are starting to flow in. So let's start up with Rally Sport. He has asked me, hello sir, I've got a 2003 Honda Rancher TRX 350 TE. Up until 2 weeks ago, it was running great. I installed an NGK Iridium spark plug a month ago, and now my machine sputters and hesitates on the first quarter of the throttle, but evens out after that. I rebuilt the carb and put it back together and installed it and put in a copper plug, and it's running a bit better, but still smells rich and runs rough. All right, with the Iridium, I don't think they ever really designed that particular plug to go in the Rancher 350, which you have. And more than likely, what you're experiencing is the internal resistance of the Iridium is much different than the CR7EB, I think, that comes in that particular model. And if it doesn't see the correct resistance, it's not going to send enough voltage and amperage, if you want to call it that, to get the spark that it really wants. And it probably was not catching up with it till you got past a half a throttle. Now, as far as it running rich after you've gone through the carburetor, you need to go back and look and make sure that you set your air fuel correctly. I believe on that one is you seat the air fuel all the way in and bracket out 2 1/4 turns. So go back and make sure that that's not backed out too far and causing you to run rich. So take a look at that and then see if it runs any better and doesn't smell quite so rich running. Mr. Garza has asked me, what's the best engine for karting? A Hayabusa. I mean, come on. I don't know. I would probably head toward probably a 450 4-stroke. I mean, it depends on if you're just having fun with this or if you're actually trying to run it in a class. Most of the karts that I've always seen and been around, they've always been the 2-strokes. But if you're just building it for you and not to compete in a certain class, go with a 450R for the manufacturer of your choice. And I don't see how you could go wrong with that. Linus is asking me, do you know if all parts for a VFR 450R 02 through 08 will fit on an 02? By the way, hello from Sweden. Hello from the USA. The best way to determine that is to go look up on your machine on our website, and it'll show a list as you scroll down what all different years that particular part will translate over to, and see if it crosses over in between an 02 to 08 on an 02. That would be the best way, because I'm not going to know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that'll get it answered for you. All right, Jack is asking me, hi John, my bike won't hold its charge after I ride. The battery is dead, but I know it's not the battery as it's brand new. Any ideas? Think it could be the rectifier. More than likely, it probably is. Your two basic parts, or three basic parts of your charging system are the battery, which you know is good now, although I'd still test it, your regulator rectifier, and then your stator and rotor assembly, which actually sends over the AC voltage, which the rectifier regulates and holds it around in between 12.5 to 14.5, maybe 15 volts DC. So the best way to determine that is just to get a voltmeter, and we've done several testings, and we've got a bunch of different videos on testing and looking at regulators and rectifiers. And guys, if you would put one of those in the chat to where what was his name? I've already lost him again. See if you can get Jack pointed in the right direction on how to test one. But you will need to have the use of a multimeter, because you need to be able to watch your voltage and see the changes from a static battery test as to when you're revving the engine. It should be static at around 12.5, 12.7, somewhere in that neighborhood. And when it's running, it should go as high as 14.5, maybe even 15 volts. And that'll tell you right then and there if your system is being charged or not. My bet is that it's not. Now, if you would watch one of those videos, and then I can show you, I do show you how you can actually do a static test on most of the regulator rectifiers, and then you can do a movement test or a live test on the stator to take readings off of it as well. All right, Johnny's asking me, is red lining bad? Not in my opinion. They put the limit there for a reason, and I have no problem taking it into that little red zone every so often. Matter of fact, I recommend it. I think some machines that they're babied a little too much, I think they lose potential long run. Quick story on that. Me and my college roommate had identical cars. I'm not going to tell you the year because I don't want to go back that far. But he babied his to death, and I ran mine, like I do everything. I run it pretty hard. After our last couple of years, we had a drag race just for the kicks, because I was getting ready to sell mine after we graduated. My car would easily pull his by 2 or 3 car lengths from 0 to, 80 to 100, and it would just eat him up. It was obvious that mine just ran better, and I think that's because I actually exercised my engine more than he did. And so your machine's going to learn your behavior. I mean, all you're going to ever do is putt around, okay, but I still think you need to blow the carbon out of it occasionally. So no, I have no problem redlining an engine. All right, Johnny's asked me, what is the value for a Honda 400 EX 2002? The best baseline to find out what your machine's worth is usually to go to Kelley Blue Book. They're gonna give you a retail value, a trade-in value, and then a private party value. So go there, put in your information, and they also get more specific by your area code or zip code, and that'll determine what your machine's value is. But off the top of my head, somewhere in between $1,500 and $2,500 would be my guess. What do you recommend to improve gearbox shifting? Maybe switching to a different oil. If you're running just a regular oil, maybe going to a synthetic, just to make sure that it is compatible with whatever clutch system you have in there. I know on certain machines that they do not want a synthetic that has molybdenum in it, and because it's too slippery, and that'll cause the clutch not to engage properly. But if it's a little bit slicker and your clutch can deal with it, that's going to make the shifting on the drums and the forks make all that. It's going to make all that work a little bit better. So I'd look into either going to a fully synthetic oil or maybe an additive. Just be very careful depending on your machine, because you can end up doing damage to your clutch system, and then we don't want that to happen. All right, Mr. Chu is asking me, can you jump start a lithium battery using a portable jump starter power bank? I wouldn't see why not. I've yet to run up on that. You jump starting it would be okay. You wouldn't want to leave it on there, because with a lithium battery, they have to be charged in a very specific graduated way. You can't just run a constant voltage or amperage into it, because it'll end up damaging the battery. They want to see a very regulated, smart charge. But as far as just jumping it off, I wouldn't be afraid to do that. I just wouldn't want to make it a common practice. The best way to bring it back to life would be to put it on the correct charger and let it do its job. All right. Cheer drivers asked me, bad valve cover seat on a CRF 450R, okay, oil all over the spark plug boot. Will the oil ground the plug? Actually, it can. If it's really that full, sure. I've seen it happen on a car before, so why not a motorcycle? I can definitely believe that. Time to replace that O-ring seal or seal, wherever it is. And when you get, well, before you even get started, go ahead and tip the bike up so you can get all the oil out of it, or either extract it with some type of vacuum system. Not your vacuum cleaner, though. I'm talking about just like a turkey baster or something. All right, Jason's asking me, John, what do I need to do if I cannot get the nut broke loose from the adjustment screw to adjust the clutch on my 96 Foreman 400? All right. The best way to deal with that is to go get some penetrating type oil, something that can break loose frozen nuts and bolts, and let it have a shot at that. If that doesn't do it, you may end up having to replace some metal there if it's actually fused together. I've seen that happen, especially when you've got two dissimilar metals. Once corrosion gets really set up there, and I've seen it on the marine side plenty of times, it gets to the point they're just one solid piece of metal, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you may end up having to go that route, but go ahead and try some type of penetrating oil, see if it can break it loose, and then give it a shot. All right, Chase is asking me, if there's slack in the throttle cable, would the machine not idle? Now, you're supposed to have just a tiny bit of slack in the throttle. I mean, it can be just a small amount, and that's what I usually aim for, but your idle should be handled by the stop screw on either your carburetor or your, oh good grief, it just left me, carburetor or your intake. I mean, one of the two, I mean, because your idle is not set by your throttle cable. That's what it boils down to. All right, Mr. Rax, he just ordered a shaft from you guys for his 99 KX250. Cool. Doug's asked me, hello, John. I have a 2012 Rancher 420. The front left wheel wobbles. Oh, boy. Left and right when moving. I have been told it's the wheel bearing. Do you guys have a video on that process? On that exact unit, no, but I've done a bunch of different wheel bearings on several different machines. So guys, if y'all would pull something that's the closest we can get to the 420 and see if we can help Doug out. Before you jump in and replace the wheel bearing, go ahead and lift the front of the machine up and make sure that it is actually the wheel bearing, because what you may be feeling is slop in your, not your control arm, but your tie rod ends off of your steering system. I mean, that one could be wandering back and forth. So take a look at it before you start throwing parts at it. Make sure that's actually what it is, because if it's the wheel bearing, it'll rock this way or this way. It won't matter. It's going to be loose. Okay, you're very welcome, Rally Sport. All right, Jack he came back and said, I've tested the battery while revving and it was at 13 volts. That's not quite enough then. I mean, it should be north of 14 volts when it's when it's having to charge. If it's hovering anything at 13 volts or less, that's really not accomplishing anything. So it's not keeping up with what that battery needs, would be my bet at this point. And go through that test. I think they, Partzilla put up the YouTube link to show how to test a regulator rectifier. Go through those tests, and then you'll know for sure. All right, Sturdy is asking me, how do you tell if you're running rich or lean on a sports quad? Well, there's a couple. The first indicator, if you're running rich, is usually you can smell raw fuel coming through the exhaust system. But the best way to tell for sure is go and take the bike out, get it on a straightaway, put it in third gear, go ahead and nail the throttle, rev it, and let it run all the way out, and then do what they call a hot cut or cold cut. Cut your ignition, roll to a stop, and then pull your plug. Because what we want to do is take a plug read to see what your wide open throttle fuel burn is. And if you pull the plug and it's black around the ceramic and around the base of the plug, you're running way, way rich. If it is completely white and it looks like a new plug, then you're very lean. To keep in mind, that is at wide open throttle, and if you want to see where you are at different points, you could just stop at whatever RPM you want to, whether it be quarter, half, three-quarter, or wide open throttle, and that'll give you an idea after about 5 to 10 seconds worth of runtime at that RPM. It's going to give you a good read on the plug as to what's going on inside that engine. All right. Gulam is asking me, hey John, I had the Barnett clutch assembly in my YZ 1000 2016, but I had an OEM pressure plate and an OEM spring. Does it work or no? I believe it should, because you're just talking about the clutch basket, correct? And I'm sure Barnett, you can use, I'm fairly certain, depending on which model that you bought, is it's a OEM replacement. So all the other OEM pieces should work inside of it. But the best place to look would be to take a look at their website and make sure that it wasn't part of an assembly. Because I've learned the hard way, even recently, when you start mixing and matching clutch parts, sometimes it doesn't work out right. But that's a different story for a different vehicle. It involved pulling a transmission out of a car, and I'd rather not relive that. So I'm in a good mood today. Let's keep it positive around here. All right, Sturdy came back. Yes, but I run fuel with some ethanol, and that makes the plug change to a different color. At least that's what I've heard, but I'm switching to pure gas from now. That would be the better way to go, because ethanol actually burns hotter. Some of the race cars I've been around, or track cars that I've been around, they'll run E85, but E85 is just so caustic. It's hard to deal with. It's really tough on the fuel system. So yeah, regular gas, that's what I would want to go with. Less ethanol, the better, especially if your machine's going to sit up any length of time. Otherwise, it'll phase separate, and it just makes a mess. I mean, I understand why we're trying to use ethanol blends, but I'm not a huge fan of them when it comes to machines that sit up for any length of time. If you want to hear some sob stories, go in the marine side of the industry and talk to those guys when the boats sit up for 6 or 7 months, and makes a mess. All right, yeah. Jared's telling me to check the machine behind me, the blowhole on the side, check the one behind you. I'll be taking that one apart shortly anyway, so I'll look at it then. Okay, Willie is asking me, what lubricant is best to lubricate the clutch cable? Thank you. I believe it's Yamalube that actually has a lubrication specifically for cables. And then I know that Motion Pro makes a cable lube, if you want to call it that. It's a tool that actually attaches itself to the end of a clutch or a brake cable. And then you can actually inject it straight into the cable itself. So take a look into those two products. Those two together, you can resuscitate a brake or a clutch cable, because I'm betting that instead of just replacing it, it may be older, because I work on older machines as well, and you just can't find them. And there's something about having an OEM instead of aftermarket when you're doing a restoration. So that's what I've done on mine. I just need to finish the thing. Too many projects at once. Barbu responded back, I tried to hit the front brake with the tank full and it never dies. Something is moving somewhere. You were right. Let me put some, I keep deferring you, but I'm glad you came back. That makes me feel good that people are coming back to find out their answers. I'm actually going to pull up your machine's schematic, and I'm going to see if I can give you a couple places to look, because something is physically making it shut down, and it is something associated with the fuel, and I've just got to look in there and find it. So give me another week to do some work, see if I can figure it out, and we'll try to give you an answer. All right, Chase has asked me, do you have any videos of adjusting idle on a carb? We've done so many, I've about forgotten. If you could get more specific as to what was your make and model again? My memory's not quite what it was. But as far as setting it, it's going to be with that throttle stop or the plate stop, and you want to look up in your manual, whatever that might be, and see what your RPM range is or where it's supposed to be, and just set it accordingly. All right, my Tob is asking me, my motorcycle is running too rich for almost 500 kilometers. Will it cause any damage to the engine? I'd rather have it running too rich than too lean. Too lean, you're going to burn a piston or a valve. Ask me how I know about that. But the problem with running it too rich is you're cramming too much fuel in there, and it'll start washing down and scoring your cylinder walls. So is it good? No. 500 kilometers, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, go ahead and get it tuned correctly as soon as possible. If you're concerned about the damage, or if any's been done once the bike is tuned properly, go back, run it for about 5 or 10 miles, and just do a quick compression test on it and see if she's in line or not. I have a feeling it'll be okay. All right, Sturdy was also asking me, I smell raw fuel when I get on it, like sit on it. Is that normal? You're talking about if it's just sitting there idling? No, you shouldn't smell raw fuel. Oh, no, when it's off. Then if you're smelling raw fuel when it's off, then yeah, there's a couple of different things. Take a look at your fuel tank vent. That could be letting it out through that direction, or worst case, if it's actually flooding your engine, which I doubt it is, you may want to take a peek at that as well. Make sure your float bowl not stuck up. Yeah, stopped up. There we go. Stuck up, like it's got an attitude or something. Oh, Willie is asking me, is it worth it to revalve a CBR 600RR rear shock or just buy a new one? All right, when you say revalve, are you telling me that it's already leaked out and you're just on the spring at this point? Or are you wanting to change the rates? But that one's adjustable anyway. The trick is not so much getting the parts to rebuild it, but finding the right person that can do it. Working on front forks, that's one thing. Now, going into a rear shock, that's a whole different set of tools and knowledge, to get that done correctly. Unless you're wanting to change any of the valving inside of it, I would say just go ahead and get a new one and go about your day. But because finding somebody that knows what they're doing when you open up a shock, they're kind of a rare breed. All right, Chase is asking me, I have an 86 Honda 250R, cool. 4-stroke, TRX 2-stroke, and when I adjust the idle screw on the carb, I cannot get it to idle without giving it gas. Should I rebuild the carb? Yeah, it sounds like you need to open it up, because what you're trying to do is you're bypassing the idle circuit, which I believe is stopped up at this point, because you've got your idle circuit, then you've got a progression circuit, then you've got the wide open one. More than likely you have either 2 or 3 jets in there to accomplish this. And of course your idle one, that is the smallest jet and is the easiest one to stop up. So you're going to need to go in and try to clean that one, and if it's too far gone, resist the temptation of trying to run a small drill bit or anything in it, because that'll end up scoring it and then it'll never run right. But more than likely, we would have a rebuild kit either from the OEM or an aftermarket manufacturer. All right, Sturdy is asking, Oh, yes, because my exhaust gets hot, red hot, but some forms say that's normal at night, and I'm like that. TRX 450, by the way. Yes, and you will see the exhaust headers glow red on those when you're running them hard at night. It's a really thin metal, more than likely titanium, I believe, on that particular model. All right, Pete's asked me, hello, the clutch on my 1982 Sportster. All right, I'm a little out of my depth here, but I think I may have the right person sitting in front of me to answer this question. Hello, the clutch on my 1982 Sportster sticks on a cold start. What is the cause and how do you fix this problem?
Similar to the other stuff, if the plates dry out and you release it and move it back and forth a little bit, maybe a little more frequent oil change.
Okay. You couldn't hear him, but he was saying when they sit up for a long period of time, sometimes your clutch plates will stick together. The best way to rock them loose is actually put it in gear, just rock it back and forth, see if that pops it loose. And he's also suggesting maybe an oil change on that one. I just happen to have a very experienced Harley guy sitting in the studio today. You were really that bored, I guess? All right. I lost my point. Linus is asking me, does FMF exhaust a big difference in the power, or does it sound more nicer? A little bit of both. You're going to get a small increase depending on which machine you're talking about. I mean, people change exhaust, for a reason. Most of the time, it's because they want a little bit more power out of their engine, let it breathe a little bit better. But hey, the sound, that's just icing on the cake. FMF, they're one of the best companies out there. That's what I prefer to run on my machines. Matter of fact, that's what we're going to be putting on this one behind me, is the full FMF system. All right, Wrath, I'm almost out of time. Wrath Neptune is asking me, I replaced a gearbox on a Raptor 660. I put everything back together, and when I turn it sounds good, but when it doesn't rev high, do you think I got the timing wrong? That could be possible. I don't think we did, or we've done a top end on a 660. The closest one I have to that is the Raptor 700, but I would bet, following the marks, they're both Yamahas. It's going to be similar. If you would point him in that direction so he can take a peek and see how to check his timing, make sure he's got the correct marks lined up. Well, all right, guys, guess what? That is pretty much it. And just like that, 30 minutes went by. So I'm going to sign off here, and next week we will not be transmitting on Friday. I think it's still up in the air as to whether or not we're going to switch it over to Thursday. So if we decide to do that, be looking for me at 3 o'clock this coming Thursday, because I'm heading to the racetrack next Friday. Listen, we just want to say thanks for dropping by, spending a little time with us, and especially if you're one of our customers, thank you very much. You make all of this possible. Everybody have a great weekend, a good week, and we will see you hopefully on Thursday. God bless.